We are here at Gamelab 2016. We are with Ian Livingstone. Thank you for joining us.
Delighted to be here.
If I'm correct, you're here to talk about education, but is it how you can use the games for education?
Well, games are clearly a fantastic entertainment industry, $100 billion a year, growing all the time. And I think it just demonstrates that games are natural. We are naturally playful. We learn through play. And yet somehow we think we can't use games for formal learning, and I would say you actually can. If you think cognitively what's happening when you're playing a game, you're solving problems, you're learning intuitively, you're not being punished for making mistakes. Games encourage you to try again and without any sort of punishment. And most importantly of all, games enable creativity. A game like Minecraft allows you to build these wonderful 3D architectural worlds like digital Lego, sharing them with their friends. Games really add context.
So I don't know if that's just concepts you're sharing with the audience today or real initiatives in order to introduce games into education programs or schools?
Well, I'm going to talk about how games should be seen as a learning tool and how you can take the essence of games to gamify any subject, any sort of real-world solution, whether it's learning how to fly a plane, that's simulation software, whether it's training surgeons, that's simulation software. So it goes way beyond entertainment. And I'm also going to talk about the schools that I'm opening, 2 Livingstone Academies in the UK, which are going to be opening in 2017, which will have games-based learning as a central theme to enable a much richer engagement with children. Because we see everywhere that children have anxiety, they're worried by exams all the time, they're forced to remember lots of facts they don't need to learn. And I think we should encourage children to think. Yeah, back in the last century, it was fine that everybody had the same learnings because you're going to transplant people out of the school place and put them into factories. That's no longer the case. 30% of the jobs that we have today are going to be replaced by robots, and 65% of children in schools today will have jobs that do not yet exist. So we have to give them meta skills of problem solving, how to deal with projects, how to work collaboratively, ensure that arts and sciences are no longer a question of either or. We need the left side of the brain connected to the right side. We have to encourage enterprise, innovation, and allow them to be risk takers. And of course, central to all that will be computer science. I want every child to be able to code in my schools. Now, not everyone is going to be a coder, but they have to understand how code works to be a true digital citizen. So if we can get those central themes of creativity, computer science, because I believe computer science is the new Latin, it underpins the digital world in the way Latin underpinned the analog world, I think we could end up with children thinking in terms of being a job maker rather than just a job seeker.
You mentioned the Livingstone Academies already. I was going to ask right about that. How is the project coming along so far?
It's coming along great. These are not-for-profit. This is state schools funded by government. We still have to have the school's national curriculum. We still have to do examinations. But the point I want to try and bring is that exams will be a byproduct of a really engaged learning as opposed to just being a means in themselves. So I want children to feel very happy and engaged at schools, really motivate them to want to learn, their own curiosity. The way they do all their playful learning outside of school, let's bring that way of learning into school, whether it's using YouTube or allowing them to create. Again, in technologies, to move them away from consumption of technology into being able to create their own technology and really give them an engaged learning to get them excited about wanting to be part of something.
What about the other way around? How do we improve education for those who want to be game creators? How do we, improve careers or degrees? Here at Gamelab there is a lot of talk about this. How can we improve that?
Well, we have to make sure children find their elements. Now, we can't all be programmers, we can't all be artists, we can't all be storytellers, but collaboratively we can, because we're all different, and yet in secondary schools we all learn the same siloed subject and are tested against our memory, rather than accepting people's differences and allow them to come together to be able to create a project and solve problems together and understand that there should be multiple solutions to problems, not just one solution. because if we're all thinking the same way, nothing original is going to happen. So we've got to get away from testing children against the same metric, allow them to show and demonstrate what they're able to do and reward them for that rather than punishing them for being different. It's really common sense.
How do you look at the UK industry right now? Like 5 to 6 years ago, you told us that you were really, really good at creating franchises, but not good at keeping them in the UK. How are you looking at that? What are your thoughts right now?
Well, I've been working with government to try and improve the health of the UK video games industry. I worked with the Secretary of State at the time, Michael Gove, who's actually now put himself forward to being Prime Minister, strangely enough. Convinced him that it was important to have computer science on the national curriculum to get rid of the old ICT, which was just office skills of Word, PowerPoint and Excel, but gave no insight how to create their own technology. And again, we have to have a good arts education. STEM subjects are important, science, technology, engineering and maths, but we should never ever underestimate the contribution that the arts, music, drama and art itself make in encouraging diverse thinking and self-expression. These are kind of the raw materials of creative industries and of games in particular. So let children again, do what they enjoy doing and let them fail. Failure is just success, work in progress. You remember Angry Birds wasn't Rovio's first game, it was their 51st game.
I have to ask you about Brexit. How do you think it will affect the UK development industry and the market, video game market in the UK?
Well, I campaigned for Remain quite strongly on behalf of the video games industry. There was a poll taken and 85% of UK video games companies wanted to remain because there's two things that are important to us as an industry. We need unrestricted access to the EU talent pool to allow free movement of labour because we employ so many EU programmers and artists in UK studios. We also need unrestricted access to a market of 560 million potential customers. And if we're outside of that, that's going to cause real problems, not just for the games industry, but for the whole of the UK. So I don't think we've seen the end of this issue yet. For me personally, I found it quite embarrassing, but we have to move on, and I'm hoping that a solution will be found where we can still be part of the single market and almost be as business as usual, I would hope.
Hopefully. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Tomb Raider. I'm sure everyone's asking you about the recent games. How do you feel about the recent younger Lara Croft and this origins story and the new games? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Crystal Dynamics have done a fantastic job in reimagining the franchise, rather than just creating endless sequels that we have to see the sort of origin story to see how did the young Lara Croft become that Tomb Raider. But of course, from a personal point of view, I have fond memories of the original Tomb Raider.
You still call her your daughter?
Well, I kind of, I've helped guide her through life, and I guess like a proud father, she's now left home now and she's doing her own thing, and I wish her all the best. But she's 20 years old now, and she survived the test of time the same way as James Bond has survived the test of time in cinemas. So I think you're going to see a lot more of Lara Croft, but where she will go next, that's certainly not up to me.
Have you played yourself the latest adventures?
Yeah, I find them quite hard because I'm getting pretty old, so my reactions are really bad. I personally enjoy playing strategy games these days, so that's what I do these days, apart from schools, is I chair 10 video games companies in the UK, most of them in the mobile space. So, I've become more of a game snacker rather than a big, intense graphic console gamer, just because I don't like losing.
All right. Again, like 5-6 years ago, when you talked to our UK branch, there was this surge of the motion controls. Everyone wanted to get in, Kinect, Wii, PS Move. And you said that was really good in order for people to play in new ways. Can we compare that to what's happening now with the VR and the new headsets and all the VR surge?
I think it's very similar. I mean, the thing that unifies these devices is that they're all peripherals, and not everybody wants to commit the financial expenditure to a peripheral. So VR headsets at the moment are quite expensive, and you need quite powerful PC for some, and some come with already that you don't need that. But the important thing is peripherals always have a finite life, and it's a future, but it's not the future. I think VR is going to be very successful in areas other than games as well as games. And so I think I'm looking a bit further. I think AR is going to have a more significant success factor for video games in particular. And for widening the audience, I think there's been nothing more transformational than with Apple and swipe technology. A lot of gamers historically had to manipulate a 15-button controller, which the general public found very intimidating. And suddenly, with a swipe of a finger across a screen of the iPhone, anybody could become a gamer. And I think that's been transformational in adding a lot more users to the joys of gaming. But every time there is a new technology, it's a great opportunity, and it always broadens the market. So, I absolutely welcome VR, AR, and everything else that's going to come in down the pipeline. I only hope I can be there to see it all.
I mean, how would you like AR to be applied to a video game? Because VR, we're seeing these experiments, but AR is like the next thing. How would you imagine it to be applied?
Well, VR takes a commitment. You have to wear a helmet, which can be not a lot of fun after about 10 or 15 minutes. But AR, we could be playing now on top of this table, projecting, our little warring gladiators between us. So that's a lot easier functionality than to have to be committed to being totally immersed in a world where you feel, sometimes out of control. Fantastic experience, don't get me wrong, I love VR, but after 15, 20 minutes, I personally feel a bit uncomfortable with it.
Besides the Livingstone Academies and all the projects you've been involved as of late, can we expect new stories from you?
Are you talking about game books?
I'm talking about writing.
Yes, well, I am thinking about it. I've recently been on a 2.5-week safari with my wife and some friends. We went to Botswana, saw the big games, and flew over Victoria Falls, and then we went to Rwanda and went cheek to cheek with the silverback gorillas after a 4-hour trek up to over 3,000 meters. So, and that was quite kind of life changing, and all the environments I went through, from the Kalahari Desert to the waterfalls to the jungles of Rwanda, I couldn't help thinking in terms of a new interactive game book. So whilst I'm not promising it, I have made some notes, and the 35th anniversary is happening next year. So never say never.
Thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to new game books.
Okay, thank you very much.